Welcome and good morning. I am Reverend Abigail Stockman. I am your half-time interim co-minister for the next 10 months, along with Reverend Misty Dawn Shelley, who will be with you sometime in October, but in her other time and life, she serves our church in Berlin, your neighboring community. It is wonderful to be here with you this morning. I served this congregation for 3 months as a sabbatical minister of worship on Zoom, and it is just a delight to be here in person with all of you. We begin with the welcoming words from the Reverend Joan Javier Duval in Montpelier, Vermont. You are beloved, and you are welcome here. And on Zoom, if you are not here in person. Whether tears have fallen from your eyes this past week or gleeful laughter has spilled out of your smiling mouth, you are beloved and you are welcome here. Whether you are feeling brave or brokenhearted, defiant or defeated, fearsome or fearful, you are beloved and you are welcome here. Whether you are feeling brave or brokenhearted, defiant or defeated, fearsome or fearful, you are welcome here. Whether you have untold stories buried deep inside, or stories that have been forced beyond the edges of comfort, you are beloved and welcome here. Whether you have made promises, broken promises, or are renewing your promises, you are beloved and welcome here. Whatever is on your heart, however it is with your soul in this moment, you are beloved and welcome here. In this space of welcome and acceptance, a space which is expanded beyond the physical building onto Zoom and out into the world. This space of welcome and acceptance, of commitment and recommitment, of covenant and of connection. Let us come together to share in worship.
Sing out praises for the journey, pilgrims we will carry on. Searches in the soul's deep yearning, like our forebears in their time. We seek out the Spirit's wholeness in the endless human quest. Look inside your soul, the kindling of the heart by pilgrims new. Find the Spirit always restless, built by those who knew wild rose. Are we ever sacred embers carried in our minds and hearts?
Come, you spiritual and faithful journeyers, you let us enter into worship as we light our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. Through the week, this chalice abides, cupped and silent. Softly it gleams in a dimly lit room, complete unto itself. Today we come together as a community of faith, joyful and free. May we abide like this chalice. May we grow in our faith to know ourselves, each other, and Unitarian Universalism and the world around us ever more deeply. Our opening hymn this morning is the age-old Abide With Me, and the words go, abide with me, fast falls the eventide, the darkness deepens, still with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless, oh, abide with me. Swift to its close, ebbs out life's little day. Earth's joys grow dim, its glories pass away. Change and decay all around I see. O thou who changes not, abide with me. I fear no foe, with thee at hand to bless. Ills have no weight and tears no bitterness. Where is death's sting? Where grave thy victory? I triumph still if thou abide with me. And now, for an incredible treat, for the first time in 3 years, in the sanctuary of First Parish in Northborough, Massachusetts, live on camera, our choir. Cynthia Menard, your religious education director, who is shared generously among 3 local Unitarian Universalist congregations, has unfortunately been felled, if I can say that, this week by COVID-19. So she would be here this morning and wishes she were here. She would rather feel better. But unfortunately, she is not able to do that. So we wish her well. We hope she is back soon and her family as well. And so I just want to share with you, instead of a full story this morning, just a little tale from the Reverend Gary Kowalski, who used to be in Burlington, Vermont. There is a theme here. I live in Vermont, so if I quote my colleagues a lot, you'll forgive me. And he tells a story, just a little story about faith. And his story is that he likes to go hiking, and he does it quite a bit. He hikes in the woods with his dog. But instead of hiking just on his 2 feet, he always brings with him a hiking stick, a walking stick, because it helps ground him. And it helps him to find his way on the path with a little less trouble and stumbling. And sometimes it is able to tell him where the pitfalls in the trail might be ahead of time. Faith is like that. If we use it as our walking stick in life, we can put it down in front of us to see if the ground is solid or whether we need to shift our path a little bit along the way. Thank you, Reverend Gary Kowalski. And that leads us into thinking about, what does it mean to have faith, and what do we do with faith? We sit here, or we sit at home now for a couple of years, and many still. And we engage in this thing called worship on Sunday mornings, which has something to do with the notion of faith, right? Something. Maybe we're not sure what. So Ralph Waldo Emerson thought about this, and he thought about it more in terms of worship, but every time he uses the word worship, we might think about faith. And it's just a little something he wrote. A person will worship something, have no doubt about that. We may think our tribute is paid in secret in the dark recesses of our hearts, but it will out. That which dominates our imaginations and our thoughts will determine our lives and character. Therefore, it behooves us to be careful what we worship, for what we are worshiping, we are becoming. From our hymnal, number 563. Let us enter into a time of meditation and our silence as we are brought into reflection by the music. To draw our circle a little wider this morning, we're going to have a reading in a moment from Sophia Lyon-Fahs. Sophia Lyon-Fahs was a early 20th century liberal religious educator. She didn't become a Unitarian, certainly not a Unitarian Universalist at that point in time. We were not yet merged. But her teachings about religion were very much aligned with Unitarianism of the early 20th century and Universalism. I was raised from early childhood. My early childhood books were not Goodnight Moon, they were Sophia Lyon-Fahs stories. But she really has marked our faith and our religious education and our theology in many ways in the following years after her life. Some beliefs, she writes in a reading in our hymnal, are like walled gardens. They encourage exclusiveness and the feeling of being especially privileged. Other beliefs are expansive and lead the way into wider and deeper sympathies. Some beliefs are like shadows, clouding children's days and fears of unknown calamities. Other beliefs are like sunshine, blessing children with the warmth of happiness. Some beliefs are divisive, separating saved from unsaved and friends from enemies. Other beliefs are bonds in a world community where sincere differences beautify the pattern. Some beliefs are like blinders shutting off the power to choose one's own direction. And other beliefs are like gateways opening wide vistas for exploration. Some beliefs weaken a person's selfhood. They blight the growth of resourcefulness. Other beliefs nurture self-confidence and enrich the feeling of personal worth. Some beliefs are rigid like the body of death, impotent in a changing world. Other beliefs are pliable, like the young sapling ever growing with the upward thrust of life. Thus ends the reading. When Jessica Lynn asks for the offering on a Sunday morning, she says this about herself. I come on Sunday morning feeling weary, having worn out the snooze button on my alarm clock. I come on Sunday feeling frightened, having seared my eyes reading the latest news. I come on Sunday feeling burdened, having fretted about my workday worries. But I leave on Sunday service feeling refreshed, having been renewed by the spirit of love in the community that exists here. I leave Sunday feeling whole, feeling lifted up by the words of righteous challenge. I leave Sunday service feeling energized, ready to continue our fight for peace and justice. This haven, she writes, this refuge, this place of worship and wonder exists because we make it so with our contributions. The gifts of our time, our skills, our food, our love, our laughter, and our money. And I would add our opening sharing of our joys and sorrows and concerns, our vulnerability. Please join me in giving, she says, so that we may continue to have a place that fortifies and challenges us in these trying and troubled times. Your offering for the work of this congregation will be gratefully received, I hope gratefully given in a moment. And I want to remind you that this month's half the collection plate will go into the minister's discretionary fund to help those members of our community who are in need of extra financial resources. And that fund has run low during the change in ministry. May the offering now be gratefully received. I have faith in music. And Olga. When asked what he would do if he knew the world would end tomorrow, the great Protestant revolutionary theologian Martin Luther said, "I would plant a tree." To have faith. When I tell someone that I've never met before that I am a clergy person, most people immediately assume that I'm someone who has faith in God. However, it is that that particular individual makes meaning of the word God. Had I not originally also trained as an interfaith, or these days interreligious chaplain, before I came to congregational ministry, I might insist on educating them about a liberal religious theology that does not necessarily place God with a capital G at the center all the time. Instead, I often find myself listening to them as they speak of their faith, how strong or how weak they feel it to be. Sometimes this is followed by their very embarrassed explanations for why they don't go to church, and sometimes it is followed by praises for their own faith community and their own minister. If this person then asks me about my own faith, it is a question asked with the assumption that my faith, because I am a clergy person, is a steadfast and unwavering faith in their God, the one they fear, the one they praise, the one they worship, the one they reject. My own faith experience, or my own experience of faith, is not nearly so steadfast nor unwavering. Rather, it is like wavering of a new or rusty bicycle rider. Do you remember learning to ride a bike and not being able to find your balance? Some days I can jump on that faith bike and balance myself riding for miles before I stumble and fall off. Other days I lose my balance and fall off that bike much sooner. And there are many, many days where I must say I can barely keep my feet on the pedals or get my legs to turn the wheels one full revolution. We have been raised with such odd, but also persistent ideas about faith and its close cousin, belief. But they are not the same thing. And the distinction is not unimportant nor irrelevant to us as Unitarian Universalists in this 21st century on the forming edge of a shifting cultural paradigm. I love the word paradigm. I learned it in college, and I've never lost my love of saying it. Something about the way it feels, though I'm not sure I yet really understand what it is. It is a pattern or a set of patterns, even an archetype. It is something we are unaware of until somehow it breaks, or its hold on our collective imagination or our collective being shifts. Think of paradigm like those fish who, if we gave them human minds, would still not ask questions about water versus air, because water is what they exist in. But if global warming dries up all the water and the fish were actually humans, they might begin to think about air and how to survive in it. Perhaps a few fish would design a machine that would turn air into water. Perhaps that machine might need 10 fish to be swishing their tails all day long in order to power that air to water machine. So now the fish can no longer swim around in the water among their own schools looking for food, avoiding their predators. Heck, their predators might be in places they don't expect them. And they would have to begin to organize themselves differently as fish. Their paradigm has shifted. In our culture, yours and mine, the current paradigm shift brings to the forefront of our human relations the questions of how power in this Western culture has functioned in relationship to human identity. Specifically, we are learning how our human power has been kept flowing in such a manner that certain fish among us are forced to remain in areas of the water where it is harder for fish to survive or thrive or just be seen and acknowledged. While others have been reaping the privilege of living in areas of the water rich with food resources and social interactions involving the power to choose, to decide where and climate change and our continually developing relationship between our human selves and artificial intelligence, or what I call the computerization of our relationships and our work. And of course, in reality, it is much more complicated and intertwined, which simply reminds us how deeply embedded these paradigms about how life should be and work, how deeply they're embedded in our beliefs and often also our faith. And you wondered how I was going to get from the fish to belief and faith. So did I. These are challenging times. They're exciting and adventurous times. They are sorrowful and grief-stricken times. But the pandemic forced us to stop and to step back from life as usual. It has provided and continues to provide us with an opportunity to hit our individual and cultural reset buttons. For you and your congregation here at First Parish, it has done the same. as you move from your successful ministry with Reverend Linda, who retired last June, and toward the hope for new ministerial leadership, you have the gift of time to reset and reimagine, relook at your congregational mission for this new and changing world. So that actually brings me back to faith and belief, because in times of change, when many of us would prefer not to learn to swim in new waters, developing faith may be a key ingredient for our resilience. Reflection on our beliefs may be another key ingredient for our resilience. Beliefs, as Sophia Lyon-Faz so beautifully said, can be weights tying us in one place, keeping us from moving about in times of change. And they may also be weights that simply help us to stay grounded and centered while change swirls around us. It matters what we believe, which was the title of that reading. I invite you for the next week to reflect every day if you can, if it just, you remember for a moment, what was it I believed about whatever just happened? Very mundane, ordinary, everyday world things that we have beliefs about. Can you, First Parish, in this interim time, open yourselves to noticing without condemning those congregational beliefs that might function among you as walled gardens rather than open doors? And what are the beliefs that function as open doors? An invitation to reflect in the coming months. I carry within me beliefs that make me cringe when I'm able to muster the laughter and lightheartedness most of them truly deserve. You can often catch me knocking on wood when I speak of the future. Now, I know that knocking on wood is not going to change what happens in my rational mind, but that has never stopped me when I speak of the future. I can still hear in my head my mother's voice about an Ashkenazic Jewish folk tradition of not naming a baby for 7 or maybe it was 10 days after the baby is born so the devil cannot find it and take residence in its soul. All I can say is that when my eldest daughter was born, my eldest child, my daughter, it took me 7 days to fill out the birth certificate. My mother would not have claimed to have believed this folk tradition, but she did make a point of passing it along, didn't she? I firmly believe, again, from my childhood of daily training to drink my juice up, that a fresh glass of fresh orange or grapefruit juice will undo the harm of the half a pound of kosher, since I've already told you about my Jewish ancestry, bacon that I consume afterwards. For some reasons, my doctors and science disagree with me, especially when I get my cholesterol tested. My point is that we all have beliefs of these sorts about the world around us and the world within us, And even when our minds and our brains and our thinking tells us differently, we are not unaffected by the beliefs we have been taught about the world, the ground we walk on, the air we breathe, the people we love, the ways of kindness or harshness. Is it a dog-eat-dog world in your belief system? Or is it a world filled with kindness and trust if you can only just see it? I also believe that people can grow and that growth can look like change at any time over the course of our lives. And I also believe that many people continually choose not to grow. My life experience does not lead me to believe in people's goodness and compassion and kindness over self-serving, indifferent, unkind, and or power-driven behaviors. I wish I could stand here and say otherwise, but I cannot. So it may matter what we believe. It's good to know and reflect and become aware of what it is that we believe, but it's not the last word. Because while I don't believe in people's goodness and compassion and kindness, my faith asks me to act otherwise. My faith asks me to act otherwise. It matters where we place our faith and where we worship and what we worship and what we place our faith in. My faith, when I want to respond to what I perceive as unkindness with equal unkindness, asks me to stop. And sometimes I can even do that. It asks me to stop and to consider what kindness would do in this moment if I were the person on the other side of any interaction with me. My faith, when I stop to pay attention to it and use it like a walking stick and allow it to be the star that leads me, drives me to become curious rather than concerned with my own feelings, curious about what else is going on. It invites me to choose who I want to be in this moment. And it binds my soul to goodness and compassion and kindness just a little bit more each time I choose to act out of my faith. I can be stubborn, opinionated, and self-pitying as the next person. And we are all subject to human angst, to that anxiety that comes when we're uncertain, when we don't know what the future is, when we lose our balance, and we stop being able to pedal in the direction we thought we were heading. And in those moments, which we have as individuals, and we have as communities, and we have as political entities. In those moments of anxiety and angst and uncertainty, when we've already stopped the bicycle, we often don't act out of faith, but we revert to our long-held beliefs. The ones that tells me, people aren't kind, don't be kind now. I think this angst, this uncertainty is at the heart of many biblical stories in our Western tradition. It's at the heart of the Buddhist stories and koans. The one that comes to mind is the story of the golden calf. Here's this whole community of people, these Israelites, they aren't yet Israelites, these Hebrews and Jews who have left slavery. They're not so sure that was a good idea once they're actually out of it, because in slavery they knew what to expect. In this wandering desert, there's no water, except of course when some presence they don't really know to count on says there'll be water or food. It comes when it comes, they can't count on it. Who wants to live like that? You know, it's nice to know water's going to come out of the faucet, and I say that as a person who hasn't had a faucet recently while I'm drilling a well. And there they are in the desert, and they're following this guy. Frankly, I can't imagine who in this room would vote for a guy who stutters badly. Moses was a terrible stutterer to be our leader. Can you see this on CNN? It's not the picture that we all imagine. And there is this leader they're following, and he says, I'm going up to the mountain because that's what I know to do is the right thing. That's the faithful thing to do in this moment. You just wait here. Don't do anything. Didn't turn out well. He went up the mountain. They're waiting at the bottom of the mountain. Uncertainty grows, and it grows, and it grows. But they know one thing they believe for sure. If you make an image of the power that goes around the world, you'll be saved. You'll be safe. You'll be okay. So they did that, because that belief they knew had gotten them through before. And they built this beautiful golden calf. Only the thing is, the power of faith that Moses was trying to connect with, of goodness and kindness and compassion, and maybe that doesn't, I'm shortcutting here a little bit. We all have different stories in the Bible, but that power didn't get adhered to in that moment. In the story, it doesn't work well, because it's a story to help us understand what happens when we lose faith and instead default to our certainties and beliefs. And it doesn't matter if the particulars of the story make sense to us now in a way. The story itself has that fundamental purpose. So if you'll just give me that for this moment, I will say thank you. And yet, we need a certain amount of anxiety. I mean, we can't throw anxiety out. Things are uncertain, and we need a certain amount of anxiety to help us to function. If we had no anxiety, we would probably be like spineless beings, and nothing that we expect to be able to do would get done. How do we find that fine line, that beautiful small pathway, the boundary between the anxiety we need to perform well and the anxiety that propels us away from faith, to take refuge stubbornly in our seemingly comfortable beliefs? How will we know when we've fallen off that narrow pathway between necessary anxiety and destabilizing anxiety about our path and our way forward? How do we find people to be accountable to? And that is the purpose of congregational life. When it happens in our individual lives, we have people around us whom we hope, and sometimes we fall short. But we hope that we will be able to have people around us who can help us hold ourselves accountable to our faith, to pull us back from those beliefs and from those times of grief and sorrow that are so deep we may feel like we're falling off the edge. We need one another. And we need other congregations to help each of our congregations notice when, as a group, we may be falling away from our faith. We need one another. We need each other. We need to check in and reflect and be accountable, because faith is not unwavering. It is not steadfast. It gets stronger as we practice it more. And that's its gift. We need one another to notice what we are worshiping, which beliefs have crept into our daily being that are too rigid or walled off, and which ones are opening doors and pliable like trees. We need one another to do what Annie Dillard calls abetting creation and witnessing to it, noticing each other's beautiful faces and complex natures, so that creation need not play to an empty house. We need one another to learn how to ride that bicycle again and to keep our balance. May it be so. May the day arrive someday soon. Amen. The day will arrive. the day will arrive. In the meanwhile, we must abide. We receive fragments of holiness, writes Sarah Moore Campbell, glimpses of eternity and brief moments of insight. Let us gather them up for the precious gifts that they are, and renewed by their grace, move boldly into the unknown and move boldly into this beautiful day we are blessed with, into the solar jazz and the remainder of Apple Fest. So may it be.
Hi, Alan.
Hey, Pam, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
We just got back from Maine. We were spent the week up there helping Sherry's older sister Kathy and her husband. They're having some health issues, and um, looks like they're in their 70s. It looks like they're going to need to move into a place that's just easier for them to manage.
Oh, a lot of
They've
work, though,
got
moving.
30 years of stuff to go through. And,
Oh, that's certainly a challenge. So is that what
downsize.
you helped with, trying to organize some of their stuff?
Yeah, well, that, and I was going through some of their insurance policies because they just weren't quite sure what they had, and some other financial stuff. So, there's just, I mean, I'm 71, so I'm very sympathetic. That's kind of
Right.
where they're at. Oh,
Well, I'm super lucky because, both of my parents had to deal with cleaning out their parents' houses when they died. And so my
Sure.
mother has been doing her best not to leave me with too much stuff.
Sure.
And
Sure.
also, my mother doesn't like to throw anything out, anything. And
Yeah.
so she makes it even harder getting rid of things because she wants them to go to someone who could use them rather than to the trash. But
Right.
it's often hard finding, matching up these things she has with people who might want them.
Sure.
But she's been good. I mean, she even, when they redid their bathroom, this is a while ago, she had an
Yeah.
old blue toilet and she put
Yeah.
that out by the side of the road and someone took it,
Wow. Okay.
Okay. I mean,
Sure.
you wouldn't think anyone would want a 20-year-old blue toilet, but someone
Right.
wanted it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had Sherry and I had to clear out my parents' home because they both got very sick over one weekend, 13 years ago. And fortunately, there were certain things in place that allowed me to step in as the trustee for their trust, and that the house was in the trust and things. So that at least those things went pretty smoothly. But clearing us all the stuff out of the house, figuring out what to do with the furniture. I mean, it was a lot of work.
Oh, it's a lot of work.
So Sherry has been diligently, reducing her stuff for the last 5 years, and I haven't quite gotten to it, but we're starting.
Yep.
Starting. So we've cleared out some of my clothes, and we've got a lot more to go through. But anyway, it's just there is a lot to be done, and we keep talking about downsizing, but we want to get to the point where when we make a decision to go, we are 30 days away from putting the house on the market rather than 6 months.
Right.
So that's the theory anyway. That's the theory. So, hey, question for you. Sometime like last March, I sent a large check to the church for my pledge, and also for the sharing the weekly collection.
Yep.
And I think it was like $50 a month to go into whatever we were supporting. How has that worked? Has that actually worked in the, have you guys been able to transfer $50 a month into whatever the monthly?
Yes, because you're not the only one who pays it, in a bigger chunk.
Okay.
There are other people who say, here's my plate donation, January to June.
Sure.
So what I do is not pay the half plate until I do it every 6 months. I write all of the checks at once.
Okay.
And because also I can't always tell, because, I get online donations too.
Sure.
And then Jean, she doesn't deposit the donations every week. She does it every few weeks. So
Okay.
I can't always tell which, if it's earmarked for a certain half plate.
Yeah.
So if people make note of it on their check, she writes that in my collector's report.
Okay.
So what I do basically is take it January to June and I divide it by 6. But then I look at if there were any notations that, certain amount went here or to there.
Yeah.
And
and make sure at least that amount is covered.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right.
It's just more tricky than when we were back in person all the time, and
Sure.
she would make make her deposit weekly. So I knew exactly how much it was. Although now, thank goodness, we're doing our half plate by the month. We used to do it weekly.
Okay.
So that makes it a bit easier.
Okay. Okay. In terms of for this month, it's going to be the ministerial
discretionary.
fund for, as an example, as opposed to, for this week, it's ministerial discretion. Next
Right,
week,
and next week it's something else,
puppies.
and next week it's something else. So by the
Okay.
month is easier.
Sure, that works it better. Okay, all right, well, good. I'm a little behind in sending you guys my check for my pledge and my collection plate for this 6 months.
Okay,
So I'll try to do that fairly soon. But I just, if that was somehow just not working, then I would handle it a different way. But if
no,
it's-
that works fine.
okay. So that all does it. Okay, all right. Well, I should go off. I've got getting my COVID booster later today.
Oh, good for
And,
you. It's on my to-do list. Making
Yeah.
my appointment.
Well, Sherry and I are going to France in about 3 weeks.
Oh, so you really want to
It
get
takes
it
about
taken
2
care of.
weeks for it to be fully effective. So, so we just, I'm getting mine today. Sherry's probably going to get hers later in the week. She'll do that. But certain things I need to do, and tomorrow will be a down day because I usually after the COVID booster, I just have a day that I feel like I've got a light case of the flu, and just drains energy and all the rest of that fun stuff.
Right, so you need to take it easy.
Yeah, be able to do that. But good to see you. Good to
You too,
chat.
Alan.
And take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.